Lagos to the association. Lagos to the association, that is the.
Wait, it's not a movie, let me just.
I'm going to share the sound.
Wait a minute. You are for the association, 6 exams, 6.
Yeah, 6. I did that.
Okay.
The team that they also decision.
So preparing for the okay. I'm gonna help you. You're gonna want to. Okay. So. Yeah.
Yes.
Wọ́n kéré sí nọ́mbà wa, àwọn ọmọdé wọ̀nyí kéré sí nọ́mbà wa. A ní wọ́n kéré o, wọ́n kéré o, wọ́n kéré sí nọ́mbà wa. Wọ́n kéré sí nọ́mbà wa, àwọn ọmọdé wọ̀nyí kéré sí nọ́mbà wa. Wọ́n kéré sí nọ́mbà wa, wọ́n kéré sí nọ́mbà wa. Na Not because I suffer fast, not because I pray and fast. No be your show, no be that. I'm watching. Hey, Osinachi, I'm no qua, Osinachi. One lemon, Osinachi, I'm watching. Hey, Osinachi, Mama, Osinachi. Not because I suffer fast, not because I pray and fast. No be your show, no be that. I'm watching. Hey, Osinachi, I'm no qua, Osinachi. One lemon, Osinachi, I'm watching. Hey, Osinachi, Mama, Osinachi.
Kéré sí nọ́mbà wa, àwọn ọmọdé wọ̀nyí kéré sí nọ́mbà wa.
for pass. Not because I pray and fast. No be your show, no be jazz. I'm watching. Osinachi, Namnukwa, Osinachi. One man, Osinachi, Apache. Osinachi, Mama, Osinachi.
Assassinando. Huh? Open. Ayan, we have joined in.
No, not even everybody in January. I have no idea about that. I guess we are for them.
That's only 3.
Okay, 1 minute. Yes. Well, that's one. Oh, no.
Have fun. So what's time? We're going to start this stuff in. Okay. My intervening principle is a one change of Islam. See you next. Huh? No, we'll just give you this because I know I'm saying next. You just let's see. We'll start now, Mark. And you check the sheet on this. That's okay. Let's hope I see again. Oh, when let's start. Sorry, the time. Hello, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you guys. Can we start?
Should we?
It depends if you want. It's not Japa.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, let's go.
Um. Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
I don't know. My co-panelists are not yet around. Even here, it's still 3:15 here in my own time. So
Okay.
and
Let's hold on for 5 minutes. Then after 5 minutes, we're going to start. So.
okay, from my own timing is around 3 a.m. here, 3:15 here, and my co-panelist is also down South America, and I know his own should be around 2:15 a.m. So
So let's just hold on for 5 more minutes.
okay.
Okay. Just start. Okay. I can start. We won't start right now. Can we start?
Okay. Okay. Good morning. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We
Good morning.
continue our conversation as we left it yesterday on Japa and migration syndrome. And as we said yesterday, this panel received the highest turnout in this 7th LSA conference. And what we are doing, as you can see in our program, we have over 5 sessions on under Japa and migration syndrome or thereabout. So what the panelist is doing through Professor Said is that after presentation, we are going to send out email to individuals so that they can turn in their paper. We are approaching an index journal to have some of these papers published. And that's what I and my co-panelists are working on with Professor Said to have we have already approached an editor on that. So what we are kind of doing is creating a synergy, and after the presentation, we are going to issue out an email so that you can turn in your papers with a corrected version of whatever the room and the panelists have already contributed. So today we also have 3 sessions, and we are kicking off with this session immediately. And this morning, I don't know, we have 4 presenters. I don't know if Mohammed is there. Is Mohammed there?
No,
Mahmoud, Mohammed. Okay. What of Obiageli from Nanazikiwe University? Okay, Abigail. Oh, sorry, I didn't even read it. Okay, Abigail will be presenting on the topic "To Japa or to Say Which Way Africans," a transpositional discourse on Heleno Herbal Traveler and Tindahunsians, the whatever. So let's hear from her. Thank you, Abigail, and you have the floor. Please, you have 12 minutes to present, and we hope to have an interactive discussion with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Thank you.
I can hear you. I can hear you.
Presentations Japa or to stay, which we have the transpersonal discourse of Hello Herbal Traveler, Attendant Nutrition, Extra, Undistrict, and Transition. The question, Japa or to stay, which way Africans border on the experiences of Africans in diaspora, migrants in the diaspora. Because it's one thing for us to Japa, it's one thing for us to travel. It's another thing to be sure of what you are going for. In this room now, if I should ask how many of us want to Japa, I believe like 90% of us want to leave. But out of that 90%, we haven't just 30% or 30% or even 20%. They actually have in mind what they are going there to do. The other 60 or 50, they are just going there because they hear they want to go abroad, want to go to the Western countries without preparation, not they want to travel. So that's why I asked. By the time they now get there, they are being met with harsh realities because what is happening there is not what is happening here. Here, somehow, we are somehow, in quote, being pampered, but they have to work. But unfortunately, when they get there, you see they are being faced with different kinds of things they will call irregularities. They are depressed and questions start setting in. Next slide, please. Actually, this is the trajectory of this paper, though it's still under serious, it's still in progress. This is trajectory. We have expectations, reality, and reaction. Expectation is we want to travel, we want to go abroad, we want to go to Europe, we want to go to America, we want to go to Asia, we want to travel everywhere, but we don't really have a clear vision of what we are going there to do. You know, in the early 70s and late 60s, we have this kind of issue in Nigeria. When people from villages, they want to come to Lagos, because today when you get to Lagos, you'll be picking goats on the streets, you'll be plugging money from the trees. So they don't really know when you get to Lagos, you have to walk. That is what is happening now. We want to go there without really knowing what we are going there to do. So in my introduction, next slide, I said the recent exodus of African migrants to Europe caused for a great concern. However, majority of these migrants cannot ascertain their level of survival in the diaspora as they constantly yearn for it. It has become a new culture which has encapsulated their vision and mentality of the young Africans, as the movement to them is like a dream come true. What they want is just to travel, despite its negative factors. That's why someone like Clement said, brain drain has over the years created a second African diaspora in America and in the Western world. So looking at it, so the modern culture of relocation, which has engulfed Africa and invariably Africans, spurs a huge surge of despair and traumatic feelings in the psyche of many African migrants due to their ordeal and horrible experiences during their illegal crossing of the desert and the Mediterranean Sea to Europe. Now we are trying to look at the mode at which they use to their mode of transition. The level of, will I say, the yen is so high that now we're not using the desert and the sea. And constantly, we've always been told that these places, they are like death trap. 100 persons will travel through the desert, 50 will only get to Libya. Out of that 50, they will want to cross the sea, 20 will get to Europe. So it's like we are playing with our lives just because we want to travel, just because we want to go to the Western world. And the most disheartening part of it is we don't even know what we are going there to do. Seriously, we don't know. No job is waiting for you, then nothing is waiting for you, just want to travel. So this caused for a great concern. You know, literary writers, you know, yesterday there was an argument that we should all travel, we should all this, we should all that. There are so many untold stories about this traveling. That's why we have literary writers. They try to tell us those stories that are not being told, the reality of things, because the literary writer writes from his environment, what he has seen, what he has experienced. As for Helen Habila, one of the writers we are studying this morning, he did a fellowship, a postgraduate fellowship in Germany. The other man from Zimbabwe also did a fellowship in Germany. So they were able to interact with Africans there. They saw the true state of the society there. So that was what informed their writing to put up this text, to inform us what is truly happening over there. So the next slide, we'll be looking at, yes, this is giving us a clear cut of what is happening in desert. There's a report here from the migrant project. It says smugglers can hide migrants in truck and in the boot of cars. Sometimes migrants get trapped and die there, just like chicken. Often, migrants have to cross difficult terrain on foot, including mountains, forests, and rivers for many days, with no shelter, and during winter, in very cold and harsh weather. And this again, the Zimbabwe writer and even Helen Habila, they all reflected in their work how dangerous it is crossing these borders in order to get to Europe. This is the first stage of their traumatic experience during the journey, their level of transition just to get to Europe. A character in Helen Habila's Traveler, the character is by name Karim al-Bashir. It resonates with what the report on the feed just read. He said that when they were crossing from Bulgaria to Turkey, they met a woman. The woman was in the bush looking for the husband's grave. Why was she looking for the husband's grave? Let's see what she said. She said, they are looking around. She said she was looking for her husband's grave. He died when they tried to cross into the Bulgarian with human smugglers. He just fell down and died. The smuggler helped her quickly to bury him in the sand. She came, or rather, she came to do or to say dua for him, to pray for his dead body. These are some of the untold stories we are not aware of. Because once we say someone has Japa, someone wants to Japa, we want to go with them, want to Japa. But there are so many gray areas we are not seeing, we are not being told. And that is what these literary writers, they are trying to tell us. So by the time they eventually get to Europe, what's next? So that the next slide will tell us. The next slide, what is there is the reality. Oftentimes, whether we like it or not, because we're able to get postdoctoral fellowship, grants, or whatsoever, doesn't mean the common man who left his shop or his skill, a hairdresser or a designer, we just go to Europe, passing through the desert or whatsoever, we get the grant or the fellowship with us. Oftentimes, what they are being subjected to is what I would call voluntary slavery. Even some skilled professionals here, when they get there through the text understudy, see that what they were doing here, a medical doctor got there and became a security guard. A magistrate got there and became something else. So they have been subjected to menial jobs. We don't know the cause of this. I believe it's the society over there. So this voluntary slavery, you can see caregivers, security services, and other menial jobs. As in, from the literary perspective, we will always be speaking from the literature, what the writers have written to support our claims, because these are not just coming from the blooms. So the next slide. What happened here? Yeah. Now, the first one we'll see, Helen Habila was discussing a character, Muna. The character Muna was a medical doctor in Libya before relocating to Germany. He confirms this in his conversation with Angela. As he puts, I was a doctor, a surgeon, but here he is now, a club bouncer in order to feed. According to the narrator, he is so hungry, he feels weak. Stay awake, he whispers, stay alert. That's all you have to do for 2 hours. He forces himself to imagine the client staggering out, flushing with trunk and dancing. Part of his job is to hold the door for them as they come out, trying to orient their sense to the code. Sometimes he helps them find their car if they can't find it by themselves. He shivers again, take another drag of his cigarette. He's not a smoker. He got this from his partner, the talk. But neither is he a doorman or a bouncer or a ballerina. But he is holding the door, bouncing, smoking cigarettes in Berlin. He's lucky to have a job at all. A surgeon, a medical doctor. These are stories they will not tell us. When we see someone has Japa, we want to Japa. But writers, thank God for literary artists, they always try to tell us the reality, how things are going over there. You know, another thing is this social media. By the time we snap with hood and the ice falling snows, we feel, oh, the guy has arrived, the babe has arrived, he's in abroad. So we all go there. We don't know whether they're even snapping all this is just to deceive us, because they will not tell the kind of job they are doing there, what they are doing there. So these writers, they are trying to tell us we have to watch, we have to be very careful. As glossary, as flashy it may seem, it could not be true. Because some of our professionals here, when they get it, they do something else. Million jobs, lots of them. So we now go to the next text. Next slide. This one is from Traveler. The next text from the Zimbabwe writer. Again, in the novel, the minstrel, the magistrate, and the mathematician, that is Tendia Hunju's novel, through the magistrate character, depicts the issue of borderline and subjugation of Blacks in Europe, as they are subjected to jobs that contradict their status. Seeing a magistrate becoming a caregiver. According to the narrator, the magistrate had heard of these places before, and the reality was worse than the stories. It was incomprehensible to him. They had full yellow bag when they walk about to the schools. He had never for once changed China's nappies. China is the only daughter. There was always the maid for that sort of things. So when the magistrate was in Zimbabwe, he was living a good life, having maids, aides at his beck and call. But now relocating to Germany because he wants to experience a better life in quote, only to get to Germany and discover that being a magistrate in Africa, he wasn't recognized. They are not seeing him like that. So he was practically suffering. All he could do was to get a job as what? Caregiver, wiping ass, cleaning, so many things. Recently, I heard of something from a friend. She was sick, she was hospitalized. She's a caregiver over there. This is a lady that made first class distinction in masters. She got there trying to settle that nothing is working yet. She became a caregiver. And through this process, I don't know what happened to her. She got infected. So now she's basically battling with her head, trying to fit into the society, and so many things around her. So as I said earlier, these are stories we are not usually being told. They don't tell us this because Japa came into Nigeria after the post-COVID era. After the COVID era, we all went to Japa. And the worst part of it is that some of us, we don't want to go through the legal means. We want to pass through the desert, the sea, knowing fully when you are gambling with your life. It's 50-50, it's even 30-70. Because according to report, my research so far in this study shows that if 100 people or 300 are crossing the Mediterranean Sea, sometimes only 15 that will get to Europe. Yes, it's that bad. From 300, you get only 15 or 20 persons that will get to Europe. And once they get it, they are so traumatized because of their experiences on the sea. We still want to go. So we now go to reaction. Please, the next slide. I said, evidently, the two novels under study vividly examine the experiences of African migrants within broader context of identity, psychic, and self-dignity. As they, however, interrogate these experiences through certain characters who at one point or the other navigate their path despite the various impediments faced in Germany. Trauma theory is then used to explore and investigate the study, as according to Richard Mollis, it is the non-physical and social and psychological injuries to the mind and spirit. Carrot adds that it is a psychic of the wound, that is psychic wound. Hence, their mode of transition to the untold reality they are made to face in Europe can be described as a canvas of trauma. So trauma theory, they help to highlight the effect of their living condition while revealing how African migrants generally go through these experiences in the diaspora, where they are constantly discriminated against due to race, class, and unexplainable prejudice. This is what these writers are trying to explain to us. That when we hear Japa, we should think twice before we started Japaring. We start Japaring with people that are Japaring. So we'll now look at, in conclusion, last slide, please. From the foregoing, it is obvious that the land is not truly or usually greener on the other side, as the untold stories are actually more than the ones shared. However, the government has a part to play as to provide a conducive atmosphere for our citizens to thrive. So citizens, on the other hand, should shun social vices like kidnapping, election rigging, thuggery, internet scam, and others in order to build the society and identity. Because oftentimes we always say the government is bad, that's why we cannot say the government this, the government that. We still have our own part to play also to make Nigeria comfortable and conducive for us. Because this high level of kidnapping, internet scam, in fact, I woke up one morning, I discovered that a huge sum of money was out from my bank account. It's not the government that did it, somebody somewhere. So we have to trace the person. So it's not every time the government. We also, as one another, we're supposed to help the society too. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Abigail. Thank you so much for that wonderful presentation. We will come back to you when we are done with other presenters for question and discussion. Please, person is Orumola. Is she or he there? Hello?
I don't know what you program. Sorry. Your name is what?
Yeah, good morning. My name is Oreoluwa Utomisin. The title of my paper is Japa, Nigerian Youth and the Pursuit of a Better Life Abroad. In this paper, I try to look at four In this paper, I try to look at the four major factors that inspire Nigerian youth to Japa. Number one, we have a poor educational system in Nigeria. Number two, we have a peer pressure. And number three, we have insecurity. Then number four, we have economic stagnation. Let me read my introduction. Migration is one of the distinguishing features of human beings that have been occurring since it started from the very beginning of man's appearance in the world. Human mobility in the primitive times, and people used to migrate in search of food and shelter and a safe living environment and protection from physical damages. In the lunatic age migration has gained importance with the ushering of the era of iron working and thus beginning technology advancement. In other words, migration is a wheel that keeps moving around Nigerian space. I.e., social media is the nature of man to be therapeutic People who will always move from one place to another for job opportunities, education, health, security, and for whatever reason. I try to look at the historical background of Japa. The wave of Japa, Nigerian slang for immigration in Nigeria was in the 1970s and 80s. Nigerian youth faced with uncertain future, owing to military interregnums and a volatile economy. The Nigerian youth journeyed to the West, the US, the UK, while some left to other parts of Europe. Over the years, more Nigerians have departed the country in pursuit of their dreams abroad. Some of these diaspora Nigerians have distinguished themselves in different women enterprises. Now, let's talk about the economic stagnation. Previous studies on economic migration have shown that the migration of Nigerian youth to Europe and other developed countries is mostly associated with economic challenges or factors such as unemployment, lack of opportunities or insufficient income, lack of economic growth, financial problems, and debt. Before migration, most of Nigerian youth migrants were self-employed or received daily wages that was not sufficient enough to cater for their monthly enterprise expenses. Given the inability of the Nigerian government to properly manage, stabilize, and sustain its economy for so many years, the migration flow of Nigerian citizens to Europe, to European countries has drastically increased. And as a fallout of the NSAS, we all know the NSAS crisis. As fallout of the NSAS, many Nigerian youth think they don't have a future in Nigeria anymore because we are not employed, gainfully employed, then the incessant also strike. So they try to make ends meet by gathering money. Some went to some place to borrow money and gather all the money to Japa. Let's move to insecurity. Another factor that inspired Japa among the youth is insecurity. One of the greatest responsibilities of the government of the country in the world is to protect lives and properties of its citizens. In this if this vital necessity is lacking in the country, what would be the factor of response of its citizens? Run for their life, Japa, Salo, or as the popular common slang of Nigerian youths. A concerned individual may suggest that thus most Nigerian citizens resort to migration to European countries where they hope to find security. The Nigerian government has failed to provide adequate security in some part of the country. We all know during the last dispensation of Muhammadu Buhari, there was a lot of insecurity around the country. In the north, we have Fulani bandits, we have Boko Haram attacks. In the southwest, we have Fulani bandits. You all remember the case of Sunday Igboho, that he rose up to challenge the security challenge in Oyo State and some part of our southwest. The Nigerian government has failed to provide adequate security in some part of the country where political and religious insurgency bound. Hence, it has precipitated the massive migration of Nigerians out of the country, seeking security of their lives and families in European countries. You all remember one Nigerian US citizen that came to Ogbomoso. He owns one hotel at Ogbomoso that he was kidnapped and killed. I think you all remember. So that's before a lot of insecurity, because when he was killed, the children and the wife vowed that they will never return to Nigeria again since they have killed their father. Next in line is peer pressure. Peer pressure is the direct or indirect influence on the people or peers, members of social group with similar Japa interests, expresses or social status. Members of a peer group are most likely to influence personal belief and behavior. For instance, I have a funny friend. He migrated to Canada during the lockdown. So whenever he calls me, he said, "All right, what are you still doing in Nigeria? Come over here now." I'm still in Nigeria. I cannot leave my program. I'm in the middle of the program, PhD, so I can't leave. Let me finish. I'll join you later. He even called me this morning that, how far now? I saw your picture that you are in Lagos, Unilag. Are you still hoping that Nigeria will be better? Yes, Nigeria will be better. Nigeria will be better. But please, leave me alone. Let me finish my program, then I will come and meet you. So, pressure is a serious thing among the youth, because all these are friends. Yes, I'm very sorry to say this. All these our friends abroad, they will snap big, as in fine pictures, depicting that they are enjoying, everything is okay, and they will tell you that you can see now, there's no Boko Haram, no armed robber will knock on my door. If there is something like a security, they will call the police, and the police will respond in the next 5 minutes, of which you will call the police here, 10 minutes, 1 hour, they are still coming. And I try to talk about the educational bad educational infrastructure. The country public university have been hit by 9 extended strike in the past 13 years. Indeed, the sense of urgency has been compounded by delays. For these former and current students, Japa deemed the holy means of recouping their stolen time. I remember after this the last ASU strike at University of Ibadan, Institute of African Studies, I was shocked that most of our master students did most, like, let's say 30% did not return. I asked Dr. Odunton, one of our lecturers in African Studies. He said, they are Japa, that this they are not coming back. Since ASU went on strike for 8 months, that they felt that they have wasted their time, and it gathers some few funds to leave the country and start afresh. And that when they Japa, they start the educational program abroad. 4 years is 4 years, 1 year is 1 year, 3 years is 3 years. No strike, no problem about their education. In conclusion, from the foregoing, it is undeniable that the current situation of Nigerian economy is in shambles. It is critical to make it difficult to make it difficult for many Nigerians to live a good life. For many government workers, salaries are not paid, underpaid for months, and the teeming youth job opportunities are not just available. Hence, the populace has lost hope in a better future in Nigeria. This prompted the need to Japa for a pursuit of a better life outside the shores of Nigeria by the Nigerian youth. This study has been able to review some of the cogent factors responsible for the massive immigration of Nigerian youths in Nigeria. It is obvious that many youths get information concept of migration through attending challenges across the globe. It has been ascertained that youth migration and Japa are two sides of a relationship point, which will continue to coexist together, notwithstanding the challenges which can reasonably be dealt through proactive actions. Insecurity in a society of which Nigeria is not an exception. This paper examines the causes of Japa migration and probably ways to manage brain drain. In my paper, I recommend that Nigerian government should take proactive action through appropriate policies and effective governance enforcement strategy to deal with the issue of migration and attending insecurity. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that wonderful presentation. The last presenter, I believe it is okay. Are you there? Living is okay. Are you there? Hello, can I?
We have
Hello, it's not here. It's not here.
It's not here. I think we
Okay.
we have another panel immediately after this by 12. I don't know if any of them is here to present. If we can shoot it up.
By 11.
Yeah, because I have another panel again. in the same period. So I don't know if any of them is here, if we can take them.
Okay, the one for 11.
Yeah.
The other guys is sharing with a panel in the other room. So we have to-
Okay. Okay. Is that right? Okay, I think they are sharing another. So let's leave it. Okay, you can continue.
Okay. Thank you so much, Abigail and Remola, if I can. Okay.
Orolua.
Okay, Orolua. Thank you. Thank you for those wonderful presentations. And let me start with the second presenter. From your presentation, is kind of you are listing 4 factors that inspire migration, and the trust of the research, or what the research is conveying, was kind of moved on, or not given to the audience to know exactly what the paper is trying to discuss. You just listed, or your presentation listed, the 4 factors that inspired migration: poor education, peer pressure, society, and economy. I think you should integrate it with I will type in a particular text you are going to look at about rethinking the youths, so that we know actually what is inspiring, or what are inspiring these youths, in connection with the 4 factors you gave us this morning. And when you were presenting the statistics you were using, to me, I find it more generalizing. I think you should pay attention on the statistics, so that we won't assume that these factors are primary to youth migration, or some people living in Europe or America. So some of these things should be put in place and considered when you rework the paper. And when you mentioned about peer pressure, the paper should try to give us certain instances, statistics, and also an ethnographic survey of how this peer pressure has influenced Japa migration, and people living in Europe. You mentioned the idea of taking pictures, their comfortable life, and so we need all these things to be incorporated in the paper, so that it will strengthen the conversation, and not to generalize that some of these are caused by peer pressure, some of these are poor education, insecurity. Because as we learned yesterday, Nigeria is not quote unquote circumstance from all these things happening in other African countries. We saw is that even India and China migrate. Statistics has it that even India and China migrate more than Nigerians in Europe, or in America. But the question here is, how are we measuring the return, or what are the country putting in place in terms of harmonizing this migration, in terms of maximizing this migration, and also giving its value in Japa syndrome. So these points are very unique, but you need to strengthen the factors so that it won't be one-sided. We need to balance some of these arguments, and also for you to give us the trust of the paper, because we need to get the trust of the paper so that we can actually know what inspired these 4 factors as you have enlisted. And I'm looking forward to see some of these statistics, some of this methodology you have employed in the paper. And Abigail, that's a very well presentation. I'm very happy to hear your you know, the views of the authors you used in terms of dissecting Japa migration. And from your presentation, I can point that you're also emotional about what people do when they come to Europe. What you tag the voluntary slavery. You mentioned that some of these professionals, when they come to Europe, they are either caregivers, they are security services and other menial job, which you think they are standing, but also, hear me?
Sir, can hear you.
Can you repeat himself? Just, maybe just the last point.
Hello?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay. Let me just start afresh. I said that Abigail, you kind of filled with emotional thoughts about people who are in either Europe or America. You try to give a balanced argument on what you tagged voluntary slavery. That some of these professionals, when they come to Europe, they are either caregivers, they are security services, and other menial job. And I'm wondering, which I would like you to respond after you must have taken questions from the audience. I'm wondering, you gave us the 2 writers you are dissecting their arguments, but I'm curious to know if beyond these authors, beyond these speculations, you mentioned that they have traveled, they experienced some of these things that they now put into space for us to learn from their literature. I want to know, beyond these 2 literature you gave us this morning, I want to know other method you used to qualify these 3 voluntary slavery you pointed out: the caregiver, the security services, and other menial job. I want to know what other statistics, what other means did you use to carry out this survey? Because I might be a little bit not okaying the authors you use, because some professionals, I think is 5% of these professionals that come to Europe or America we see on social media are doing this particular job. Because, for example, United States, someone that is professional in medical services, if the onions is being peeled well, the about 70% of them does not end up in either security services, caregivers, or menial jobs, because some of these professionals are being looked upon even here in the United States. So I want to know, beyond these two authors, their experiences in the literature you gave us this morning, I want to now ethnographic you surveyed this research so that we will give a balance sheet between the author and what is happening in the current sphere. And I'm battling with the word slavery. But though there is something attached to the voluntary slavery, but I'm also battling with the word slavery. Professor Moses Ochono was here yesterday when he mentioned that we should maybe in a humorous expression, we should leave those who are abroad and those who want to stay in Nigeria. Nobody should drink Panadol for another person's headache. But I'm also battling with the word slavery, which I would want you to tell us a little bit, or give it in a broader perspective, what slavery you want to address in terms of this 21st century. And there's an assertion you made. You said Japa came into Nigeria through after the COVID era. Maybe it was kind of a presentation. I don't know whether you are talking about the increase or the rise of Japa came to Nigeria after the COVID or through the COVID era. Just try and that we understand the statistics. Are you measuring that before COVID? What are the migration statistics? During and after COVID, what has happened, so that we get the connection why you made the assertion that Japa came into Nigeria during COVID-19 era. And lastly, the two authors, I want to ask you a question. If you are seeing the two authors writing from the idea of African postcolonial society, that they have this bias about coloniality perceived, or how do you think the perception of these two authors arrive to their conclusion about where you mentioned about illicit method applied to travel? How do you measure the tone of these the two authors you employed? Thank you, and we move to the audience as you gather the answer. Thank you so much.
Reaction from the floor, and then
Okay.
Thank you very much, the presenters, for a wonderful presentation. Mine is just a few observations and maybe a question. Abigail, from a literary perspective, you've tried to, literature is a mirror through which the society sees itself. But when you are using literature to interrogate a historical phenomenon, often in issues around objectivity, we do say that those characters sometimes are fictional. They do not depict the reality on ground. And so how objective are some of these, these tests that we have used? Those characters, yes, they may be speaking to the issues, but I feel that they do not in reality objectively tell the truth as it is. it is not only Africans that indulge in this kind of menial jobs that, or you call second slavery. There are poor, Europeans too, who are security guards, who are homeless. In Italy, in Milan and Netherlands, I was fortunate to give, to dash some homeless people money. So how do that fit into this, your narrative? So I think that you need to also begin to talk about, and you were trying to paint an image that, Europe is not a state of El Dorado that, we often believe that it is. People should be allowed to move. People should be allowed to move. Labor would always go to where it is appreciated. There is no reason why I should have a PhD and not earn up to $300. Whereas a security guard in Europe earns 1,500, 800. And so when I move, you now begin to apportion blames. And so why should I remain a lecturer in Nigerian University earning $200 a month if being a caregiver will give me $2,000 in Europe or 2,000 euros? So the end to me justify the means. This Matthias is in the US. I'm sure he's either a teaching assistant or maybe doing some other things, and he is doing well. You can't compare what he's doing to be second level. And so that's what I think we need to literally test. Often do not tell the whole story in reality the way it is. To you too.
Thank you, Dr. Danladi. The only thing my problem with those in literary studies is that they don't want to embrace the interdisciplinary in their research. The first person I mentored from literature, or that's your English department, she told me, I'm using Tano or Jaide's work. We don't do field work. I said, no, you must go to the field. And immediately she went to the field. She started winning awards. So I want you to break away from that kind of your culture. Okay.
Let's start on it.
Thank you so much for your various presentations. And I have a problem with when people tie migration to poor education, right? Because most of those that are migrating, especially from the southwestern Nigeria, they are not poorly educated. In fact, education is one of the reasons why people are able to migrate. So it's not poor education because they don't have education. That's not really why they are migrating. But because they have some level of education and they want to further, and they also feel that that environment is more conducive for them to further. Then when you also try to talk about the issue of insecurity, let me also compare the North and the West, right? In the West, we don't really have cases of insecurity, right? But people from the West are migrating in droves. When you talk about forced migration, I can agree with you that those in the northern part, especially in the Northeast, are migrating because of insecurity. But in the West, the reason might not really be tied to insecurity. That might not work. Then you talked about your work, actually. You generalized the Japa phenomenon. And most of what you were saying can be placed within the premise of irregular migration. That's what I feel, especially when you started talking about the time frame of this migration. I also had that issue with her own presentation when she adduced mass migration to the post-COVID era, forgetting that in the between 2013 and 2016-17, we had issues of mass migration of the undocumented migrants, especially after the post-Gaddafi, after Gaddafi died. So I think even that period, the migration we witnessed then was far, far higher than the migration we are witnessing now. Because those that are migrating now are those who are able to marry with the will and the capabilities. unlike in the past. So please, I want you to take some of those things into consideration. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I wonder if I could take some liberties. Abigail's received 3 bits of feedback, all of them challenging the relevance of literature and literary studies. I wonder if we could just take a moment and see if Abigail could respond to those 3 points. Would that be okay? I feel as if she's received 3 points, all of them suggesting that literature has effectively no part to play in this debate. If I would like to hear if Abigail has a response. Very well. Okay, so if I can't take that liberty, I will go ahead and respond because I feel very strongly about this. So I'm trained in literary studies. I'm a film scholar, and I've heard these 3 challenges. And I have to say, I think they misunderstand the work that's done in literary studies and what a literary text, what literature can do. Literature is not an impoverished form of knowledge that requires data to prop it up, is my view. It's a kind of knowledge that provides different truths than data can provide, is my approach. And so we could add more data, another set of statistics, another bit of research into the numbers around. But as many of those studies you get, they will all come in the same form of knowledge, and literature will provide another kind. For instance, and this is where I'm thinking about Abigail's presentation. One of her final slides talked about the emotional, the trauma, right? Now, we can talk about trauma in statistical terms. We can talk about it in another discipline, psychology, in sociology. But in literary studies, I think what literature and what 2 authors who are, it's true, they're not providing a empirical study. They are providing a kind of research that involves emotional insight, empathy with what other people are experiencing, and imagination as well. So the approach to trauma there is imagining something that is part of reality, but is lost in statistics. Emotion and human experience, what is it like? What do people feel? How do these contradictions become resolved in their own minds? And I feel like literature is the best tool. Now I'm going to be partial. I'm being biased here. Literature is one of the best tools for understanding how other human beings are thinking through these things, which sometimes other kinds of knowledge can miss. So that's all.
Thanks.
Can I go ahead? Can I go ahead?
So that means the chair is being biased. Thank you, everybody. Abigail and Oreoluwa, thank you for the beautiful presentation. I have a suggestion and a little deviation from what we have been having. It has been the regular trend from the time I started reading, what is it called, works, particularly from people in the literary area. And at this junction, in terms of research all around the world, I want us to shift a base and look at what the global research is trying to do in the area of multidisciplinarity approach to research, particularly in literature. Professor Cornell, I will want this idea that when people in literature, in literary criticism, whatever, they are using texts that has to do with novels and all of that, that they could match with it another means of data gathering. You could apply the use of questionnaire and look at that population which that literature text addresses and pick some sample size from that population
structure questions from that literature text you are analyzing and field it for that population size you have chosen from what the literature text is focusing. Let's assume now, you may not understand, but let's assume now that I have a literature text that focuses on Ondo State, and I'm analyzing that literature text based on Japa. I could develop some certain question as research instruments and administer on that particular population and do the analysis in statistical way, and at the same time analyze the data and make a mixed method to balance what the physical data on ground is, what the literature is saying. Thereby, you can both marry both and field it. It will bring a new dimension to literary works all around Nigeria, and people will begin to follow that trend if it works with just one researcher rather than following the same pattern year in, year out. That is my suggestion.
Thank you. Because even in history, we are not restrictive. But today, for us to be part of the global debate, we need to shift things. Yes. It's me. Oh. It's you. It's me. It's me.
Thank you very much. Abigail and Oreoluwa, thank you for your presentation. I think this is very promising, and I think we should try to take the things everybody is saying so that it will make the work very good. My question is this: I think you should conceptualize Japa. Now, from I think it was Abigail's presentation, she talked about Japa as a trend that existed even in the 1940s, if I'm correct. That was what she said. And I think I have an issue with that. Okay, maybe it's Oreoluwa. Okay, I have an issue with that. You must be able to separate or conceptualize what Japa is and what migration is. Migration has existed long, but Japa as a trend is a more recent. And for you to understand what it is, you must know what is Japa and to be able to date it. I think once you are able to do that, you will be able to now, your objective, your thinking will be more streamlined as long as you understand, because both of your work has Japa in their title. So you must conceptualize it. It is too important. So that is my question. So once you can differentiate what Japa is and migration and illegal and irregular migration, you are good to go. Thank you.
Finally.
Okay, good morning. Yes, my first observation goes to Miss Abigail. Dr. Abigail. Sorry about that. To Japa or to stay, which way Africans? Now, why Africans? Don't you think the concept of talking about Africa is too wide? There's something we call scope and delimitation. Why didn't you just pick Nigeria rather than going all the way to Africa to talk about Japa in Africa? But you cannot use you cannot generalize that finding to the Nigerian context. Wait. You were talking about your friend. Your friend is a Nigerian. The examples you gave are Nigerian people. Okay, about Nigerian people. Oh, she's not Nigerian? All right, wait. Now, and you kept on saying one house. Like I'm saying, they are African playwrights or novelists. But why do you use their findings to generalize for the entire Africa? Is it the same thing everywhere? Is it the same issues? Is it the same issues that make people live in Nigeria? Is it the same in Kenya? Is it the same from other African countries? Then you kept on saying this word. They never told us. They never told us. Who are the they? Who are the they? You know, for Nigerians now, they have this sentence, or should I call it a clause? It is better to die in heaven than to suffer, die in hell than to suffer in heaven, or something like that. It's better for them to go and suffer there than live in Nigeria.
So you can't tell me that most Nigerians are not aware of what they are going to face there. In fact, I even have a sister-in-law who is saying it's better she goes there and become a caregiver rather than staying here in Nigeria. So what can you say about that? Okay, so what I'm saying, no, this idea, sorry, one house. Now, you kept on saying, wait, I'm still coming to the second person. You kept on. One house. I know the best, so I just okay. One house. I'm not putting out. Okay. Then
Excuse me, I'm still the chair of the Thank you. We have a level panel here. You see this chapter is an ongoing conversation. We should call a workshop for it. It's a conversation that goes on until LSA buys into what we are doing. So don't worry, we will have this conversation. Just do that.
Okay, let me just go to the second person quickly. Okay.
The second person.
Presenter, the second presenter. I realized that you stated the causes of Japa, why people leave the country, right? But it's like you are stating it from your own observation and what you have seen around. We need scholarly works or scholarly people that have said something about these things and why Nigerians migrate. Research is scientific. It's not based on what you have seen or based on what you think. It is based on what? On scholarly works. So you should underpin those claims with or back them up with what scholars have said. Then secondly, you said Nigerian government has failed. In research, you need to use euphemism. The use of words that are less harsh to present something that is unpleasant. We know that Nigeria has failed. Okay, the government has failed us, but you do not come out outrightly to say Nigeria has failed. It is harsh. So next time in research, learn to use words that are a bit mild to describe situations that are not too pleasant. Thank you.
Oroluwa, please, we are going to give you a book to help you with your listening. We are coming with it.
I'm the next one.
Okay.
Thank you.
1 minute.
Okay.
Please don't ask about it.
I'm not arguing
Already
anything.
say something.
I want to say thank you to Abigail for a very beautiful and insightful presentation. I'm actually I work on migration. I work on international prostitution in Benin. So, and what you are dealing with and what you've analyzed through those novels, they are very important. And I want to say one of the work that I used for guidance in my work was a novel written by a Benin man analyzing the issue of prostitution in a very unique way. So these literary texts are important for our work, and I think you should understand your methodology. In as much as you want to borrow, stick with your methodology. They teach us that in Ibadan School of History, that even as much as we are borrowing, picking here and there, we must hold on to our methodology. Do not let people pull you here, and there. Stick with your methodology. Thank you very much. That is all.
Prof, I actually like what you say. Okay. Okay, thank you. Thank you for your interventions and your questions. Dr. Abigail, over to you.
Yes. To start with, the person online, he asked me of my
Search for it. I'm going to search for it.
Yeah, he asked me of my data, statistics, what. There's what we call literariness. Okay? By the time I'm discussing or I'm analyzing a literary text, then I started deviating into other forms of methodology. I'm leaving the literariness of the text. The data you saw there are from those novels I read.
So I don't need to start looking for data. Those are the raw data. Okay. In literature, we use what the author has written as our data. Fine. Someone said I should go to the feed or whatsoever. Now, in literature, recently, we have what is called new historicity. Permit me to stand. When you use new history to analyze a work in literature, that is when you'll be moving into what informed the author's writing, trying to get the raw data from the field. What you saw there, I used trauma theory. In trauma, I didn't say historicism, because I can see in this form, we have so many historians here. And if you want me to move into this in order to understand what I'm saying, why can't you just have a liberal mind and understand literature for literature's sake? Because I was surprised, the panelists, the attack that was coming from her, you have to do this, you did not do this, all these, she made herself and said, all these literature people. That was quite too harsh. And she's the chair of the panelists. So and that was the emotion I saw people were building on to attack literature. Yeah, we are here. Then the other person said, I said Africa. Yes, I will use Africa because my primary data, the novels I use, they are not just Nigerian writers. The person talking about Zimbabwe, talking about Kenya, talking about so many parts in Africa. So that's why I use Africa, meaning that what is happening in Nigeria that Hello Habla wrote about is also happening in those countries. So that's why I use the term Africa. Fine, some friends are saying, I say Japa started in this. For crying out loud, have you ever heard the word Japa before, if not recently? People migrated in 2017, 2016 in droves, but we never heard the term Japa. We're not hearing about Japa now. So that's why I said the term Japa, we're not hearing it now after post-COVID. There's one thing I do. When I go to conferences, I try, like yesterday I was in Spain, the other one, I try to learn, I try to open my mind, free myself, unbiased, to learn. But if you not say want to bring your study, that to checkmate mine, to watch mine, to score if mine is correct, it won't really all go well. It won't go well. We need to appreciate literature from its literariness. That's what we call literariness. So that's what I have to say.
Thank you, Abigail, for that response. We are sorry for. We are sorry. I apologize. I'm always ready to apologize. And Abigail,
we need to address this. This is how do I put it? An academic exercise. Yes. Bullying should not be allowed. Number one, we can pretend all we can, but it is there. You can do it and try to, make it subtle if you have to. But I really don't think you have to. But to make it so sharp like a knife is really wrong. Because there are some people that may not have the face-to-face the crowd a second time, and it is killing. Then first of all, Abigail, I want to disagree with you that those people, historians, I'm a historian, a proud one at that, and we don't ask questions unguidedly. So please be sure if they are historians, first of all, before you make that statement, I will fight you for that.
We are not fighting here. Okay, thank you. No, I don't know whether we have time. No, excuse me. I don't know whether we have time. But Abigail, please, I still have the chair. So Abigail, I'm so sorry. The way you misunderstood maybe what happened. I don't know, my sessions are always like this.
So, unrelated to this debate, because I came late.
No, I know. That's why I left. I would have told you.
Okay, please. Please, I apologize for coming late, but this is a topic that I'm interested in. I was at the panel yesterday. I missed the second one, I believe this is the third installation.
Yes.
So it's a very topical issue, obviously, and quite controversial as well. But I think we can thoughtfully approach it and come away with some insights. And hopefully we can have a forum, maybe even a conference dedicated to this topic at some point. But let me say a few things. It seems to me that, we can disagree, but let's be scholarly about it. That's the bottom line, right? But for me, from where I stand, after yesterday, I had a few moments to reflect on some of the issues that came up in yesterday's panel. And I think, in my opinion, we may be working with some fairly outmoded frames here when we analyze this Japa phenomenon. From what I heard yesterday. Yesterday, I got to hear, I'm not a Yoruba speaker, but there was someone that defined the term itself, Japa.
Yes.
And he said Ja means to flee, and then the other part means it is permanent, to basically something about permanence of the phenomenon. And I think that when I heard that, I said, we may need a new term to capture what's going on, because I don't think there's permanence to this migratory wave that we're seeing. Nobody is fleeing to not return. I haven't seen any. I've lived in the US for 25 years. I myself, I Japaed at some point before Japa became a term. But I've come home, I come to Nigeria 3 times a year. Apart from the pandemic that disrupted my movement, I'm probably in tune with home, with events in Nigeria than a lot of Nigerians. Some people even say, oh, Professor Cholo, how do you keep in touch? I speak to people every day in Nigeria. I speak to multiple people every day. So, I think that the Japa phenomenon, if it's true, if that gentleman is right, that's the definition.
It's not totally wrong.
Okay, it's not totally right. Okay, I'm sorry because I'm going off of what he said yesterday.
Yes.
I can't remember his name. Yeah, but the point he made was that it's permanent. You run away and it's permanent. And you are not trying to come back. Okay, and that you are lost. Okay, all right. Okay. The other part of it, the other concept that I think we are using that may be problematic a little bit for this debate and discussion is the concept of home. We need to re-theorize and re-understand the concept of home. Because in the age of informational flows, in the age of human flows, in the age of the exchange and the flow of expertise and knowledge, I think the concept of home has been destabilized and fragmented in multiple trajectories and directions. And so when we create this dichotomy, this sharp dichotomy between home and abroad, it doesn't quite hold anymore in the way that it would have held in the 80s and 90s, and maybe even in the early 2000s. That's no longer the case at all. We are situated in multiple places now. There are parts of me that are in Nigeria permanently. Even though I live in the US, there are parts of me that are in the US, and I have to be pragmatic about it. They are part of my family life that are situated in the US. So many of us have multiple lives, multiple complex lives, located in different geopolitical zones, and that's okay. And the last thing I'm going to say is that from where I stand, from observing this trend, I think that we should take a step back and reflect in a sober manner before we sit in judgment over this. It is too early. The jury is still out. It is too early to say what might come out of this Japa phenomenon. We are scholars. We are trained to be circumspect. Let us give it some time to play out, and then we'll see. But from where I stand, I feel like, there's this towing and throwing going on. The Nigerians that are Japan, they're always returning and going back. People go and they sort themselves out in terms of their papers and then return. Like in the 2000s, we saw a big wave of return migration. Scholars were writing about it. Abi, it has slowed down now, but in the mid-2000s, that was the big phenomenon. People returning from the UK, from the US to set up businesses, to start new ventures and so on and so forth. And they brought a lot of knowledge, they brought a lot of value, they brought a lot of human capital, and even real capital in terms of money. And they've contributed to the country. So I do feel like the future of Africa itself, and this is a controversial statement to make, but it's a provocation that I put before you. The future of Nigeria, to some extent, the future of Africa itself, might to a large extent depend on this towing and froing, this destabilization of the concept of home and abroad by youthful, young, energetic, adventurous Africans and Nigerians who are rejecting some of these dichotomies, some of these restrictions, and saying, no, we can be in London and be in Lagos at the same time. We can spend 1 week in London, we can have businesses in multiple places. We can have businesses in, why restrict us, right? So the future of Africa might actually be determined by this insurgent towing and froing by young, energetic, and driven Africans. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prof. Prof, thank you for that wonderful intervention. I'm not giving you the opportunity. Are you okay? No question. Okay. So I think we're almost at the end of this year. Matthias, do you still have anything to say?
Yes, I just wanted the Professor Moses or Chono to comment on. I heard a person when someone said that she should stick on her methodology. Someone just made that she should stick on methodology. It's not really sticking on methodology. You can't stick on methodology in this era, in this century, without trying to. Someone just said she should stick on a methodology and make that affirmative. You know, that affirmative is quite appalling to hear that someone is saying we should stick on your methodology. And I wanted Professor Moses or Chono to comment on that. If someone is stick on your literally methodology, it's quite strange to me. So since Professor Moses is there, I would have wanted him to comment a minute on that stick on methodology. But if I don't know, Auntie, is she still there?
Don't worry. Prof is still there. But anyway. The debate is about we encourage we're encouraging one of the presenters to actually, because of the nature of this particular panel, that she should not stick on what the literary text say, that she should also try to go to the field, get one or two things to back up her argument. But they say that they are in literary studies, that they don't push them, they must be like this. Yes. Well,
and I never want to finish. Professor, no, this is a big professor from history from Uganda and will come and say it will be history method. But immediately I shifted from history method.
So there is well, from again, this is purely my perspective, but I feel like disciplinary methodological mastery is important. It's good to be grounded in the methodologies of a particular discipline. That is the foundation, okay? But I think that certain topics naturally lend themselves to a multidisciplinary methodologies. There are certain topics that you explore that you cannot but reach out beyond the methods of your discipline, especially in this age of multidisciplinarity. This is what is cherished and valued across the world, because the understanding is that no method in any discipline is sufficient to provide all the answers that we scholars try to find. If you are going to provide a set of comprehensive answers to the questions that you are posing in your research, often, in most cases nowadays, you have to reach beyond the methods of your discipline. The problem, let me say this is very important, because I sympathize with, I don't know your name, please, the presenter. I actually sympathize with us. If you don't, please, I'm not trying to put you on the spot or to make you uncomfortable. If I may ask you a question, are you a faculty member, are you a lecturer or a student, a graduate student? You're a lecturer. You have a PhD. Okay, excellent. But okay, in most cases, what I've seen, because as many of you know, I conduct workshops for early career people, and in most cases, what I see is PhD students in Nigeria here. They tell me the constraints that they are under. So often it's not their fault. It's the fault of their supervisors and the system itself that doesn't allow them to develop a set of a multidisciplinary methodological repertoire. They are punished. In fact, sometimes they are punished for doing that. So it's a systemic institutional problem that we need to resolve, maybe at the regulatory level. So it's not, don't blame it on her per se. It's the narrow training that we give people. A PhD is supposed to, when you have a PhD, you are supposed to be literate. You are supposed to be trained. You are supposed to be conversant in multiple methodological conversations. And if you are not, you are supposed to train yourself. You are supposed to self-educate. You know, many of us obviously have, we're trained in a particular discipline, but as we progress in our research lives, we branched out. And that is the only way to have success in the 21st century academy. Thank you. Those are my thoughts.
Thank you. Abigail, we are here to learn. I'm sure you will pick one or two things from this. Thank you. The next panel is 11 o'clock on Japa.
Japa again.
On Japa, the debate. You heard what stuff say. We will even hold a conference or even workshop or debate. The conversation is ongoing. So those of us that are in this panel, we have a long way to go. Thank you for attending. Waiting for the next panel.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.
They took the line. So that's they took the line.
Oh my God.
This section is interesting. It's really interesting.